Welcome everyone, this is Dr. Mrkola, and today I'm here with Bob Capelli, who is the Vice President of Cyanotech, which is the largest grower of astaxanthin in the world. You might be wondering what astaxanthin is. Well, it is a derivative of a marine algae. It's a very potent antioxidant. And Bob actually is one of the co-authors of some literature that was written about astaxanthin, which is a very powerful piece. And after I read that, I was so intrigued with it, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But I was so intrigued that when Dr. Oz called me last year and asked me what's the latest and greatest in supplements, I said, well, I just read this book about astaxanthin, and I'm very excited about it. And so he had me on the show, we shared it, and interestingly, the entire national supply of astaxanthin ran out within a few days. So it was the power of the presentation that Dr. Oz has. But one of the reasons I was interested is because it's, in case you don't realize already, but astaxanthin, you'll elaborate in great detail, Bob, is what actually makes salmon orange or pink, and then it puts the pink flamingos into pink. I mean, because typically flamingos are born white, and they only develop that pink color after they're eating this pigment from this algae. So welcome on our program, and thank you for joining us. And I'm wondering if you can share with our viewers how you became interested in this and sort of discuss your journey in this whole process, because I'm sure it's a fascinating story.
I hope so. I've been about 20 years in the natural products industry, and I started in distribution of many different products. This is back when I lived in the East Coast in New Jersey, and after about 10 years working in that job, I tried astaxanthin, and I found remarkable results. It was incredible.
So you personally tried it?
Absolutely. So this is about 10, 12 years ago, and what I found was...
and how did you hear about it?
It had just come out. It was a new product. It was the strongest antioxidant. I want to see for myself exactly what it was all about. And I play basketball, and I've been playing basketball for years, usually about twice a week at nighttime. And back when I was in my late 30s, when I was working in New Jersey, I would play basketball, and the morning after, I'd be so stiff, or not here, but my knees mostly, stiff and sore. And my wife used to make fun of me. She said, you walk like Frankenstein in the morning, because I was just stiff, like a monster. And I started taking this astaxanthin, and within about a month, I'd spring out of bed the morning after basketball. I felt like a 20-year-old again. It was really incredible results for me.
Quite dramatic.
Yeah.
That's excellent. So you had some personal experience with it that showed that it worked. And so what was the next step in your involvement?
Well, the next step was that I sought out the job that I'm currently working at for this the largest producer in the world of astaxanthin, and it's been great ever since then. So I've gotten very into the ingredient. What I've also found...
so for the last 12 years, you've just been pretty much exclusively focusing with the astaxanthin?
We actually have two products. We have astaxanthin and we have spirulina as well. Okay. So it's really, we're like a two-trick pony, pretty much.
And it's because they're both from marine-based organisms, and the growing process or the farming process is very similar.
Exactly, yeah. They're both from microalgae, and two very different species of microalgae, but the spirulina is a blue-green algae. It has a blue pigment in it as well as the green chlorophyll. Astaxanthin is a green algae. And what we do, which is very, very interesting, is we're in Hawaii, and there's intense sunlight there. And so the astaxanthin grows in a few different stages. In the first few stages, it's always covered. It's either indoors or it's outside, but it's covered. The last stage, the final stage, we call it the redding stage. It goes from green to red in the period of just about 1 week. And that's because what it's doing...
How long does it take to grow before that stage?
It takes about 4 weeks or so before it goes to the final stage. And there's really 3 or 4 distinct stages.
And you can continually harvest throughout the entire year, every 4 weeks, because it's essentially virtually regular daily sunshine in Hawaii.
In Hawaii is the ideal place to grow astaxanthin, or any microalgae. It's the perfect location. We're not in Honolulu. We're on a remote island. And,
which island are you on?
We're on the Big Island, on the Kona side, and it's just awesome sunlight, and it's no pollution, and the water is perfect as a growing source. And so what we do, we create stress to this algae, and we do it 2 ways. In the final stage, we put it out into the sun, and the sun's so intense that the algae has to develop a defense mechanism to survive. The second thing we do is we stop feeding it. And when we stop feeding it, and we put it out in the sun, in a period of just about a week, the green algae goes to this intense red color because it has hyper-accumulated astaxanthin. And what it's doing, it's almost it's a survival mechanism. It's creating almost like a force field to shield it from the sun and the lack of food. This algae can live for over 40 years, doctor, with no food, no water, in either intense heat, intense sun, or even intense cold. As soon as it's put back in favorable conditions, the algae turns green and starts swimming around again. It's perfectly healthy.
That's
So
fascinating.
you can imagine if it's helping the algae to that extent for 40 years, protecting it, what it's doing when we ingest it in our
Well,
bodies.
it seems to me the obvious analogy here would be that the algae are producing this astaxanthin very similar to the way our own skin cells produce melanin in response to our normal exposure to the sun. It maybe doesn't increase as rapidly, but essentially serves the same purpose to protect us against excessive ultraviolet radiation. So with that, since there's such similar responses from the organisms, can you share with us your experience or the literature that you reviewed with respect to using astaxanthin as a supplement orally and maybe topically in helping protect against sunburn?
Well, that was one of the early studies that our company sponsored, was to test in humans. There had been actually some rodent studies before that with hairless mice to put them under heat lamps. And by the way, our company does not sponsor any animal research, but these were mostly done in Japan. And but they showed that by ingesting astaxanthin, the mice could stay under UV radiation longer without having any sort of sunburn or deleterious effects, damage to the skin. We did a test in humans, willing subjects. We found in just 2 weeks, with only 4 milligrams a day, that there was a statistically significant increase in the amount of time the subjects could stay in the sun without getting burned. So it absolutely is working as an internal sunscreen.
Okay, great. So it will. Now, obviously, there's a lot of variables that are present, primarily due to the color of your skin and the time of year, the intensity of the sunshine and such. But for the most part, it will not eliminate sunburn in most everyone, but it will radically reduce your risk of developing severe sunburn and consequently, and perhaps more importantly, the risk or the damage that sunburn incurs, because no one should be getting sunburn. There's no expert would disagree with this. That's something that's universally accepted. We need to avoid getting sunburned because that causes not only photoaging, but it can cause skin cancers and perhaps even other damage you're yet unaware. So we want to avoid that. One of the ways to do it is to do cautious, prudent sun exposure, but then clearly, for at least a 2-week time, 4 milligrams of astaxanthin. Is there any benefit of taking a higher dose for protection, or is it sort of peak out at 4 milligrams?
No, that's actually that's a good question, doctor. But many people take a lot more than 4 milligrams, usually anywhere from 4 to as much as 12 milligrams per day. And we found the research, depending on what you're taking the astaxanthin for, varies quite a bit. With for a UV protectant and for actually to improve the skin's appearance, it actually works, believe it or not, as an internal beauty supplement as well, because it can actually reduce fine wrinkles around the eyes. It can improve skin moisture and skin elasticity. So that's about a 4 milligram dose. But for other things, like for, say, joint problems, for athletes, up to 12 milligrams is usually indicated.
Interesting.
We have one guy who works at our company who takes a lot. He takes about 40 milligrams a day, which is well above what is really necessary. But he's an athlete, and he feels it really helps him. And the only thing that I've noticed in this guy is that not his skin in general, but the palms of his hand have become like just a little bit more reddish, let's say.
Okay, so
other than that, really no difference in his skin.
40 milligrams. So let's talk about some of the other benefits. One of the areas that intrigued me when reading the literature you compiled was the benefits in sports, and there were a lot of elite or competitive athletes who were using it and anecdotally had been very impressed with the results and their ability to work out harder and perform better in their competitions. I wonder if you can address that.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of endurance athletes that are taking astaxanthin, and a lot of them are just raving about it. They love the stuff. There was a study about, this is going back probably almost 10 years ago in Sweden, of young men that were training, and they had them doing deep knee bends, as many as they could do, until exhaustion. And they put, obviously the control group taking placebo, they put the experimental group taking astaxanthin. That was also a 4 milligram dose. After 6 months, the young men working out taking placebo could do approximately 22% on average more deep knee bends. The ones taking the astaxanthin could do 62% more. So they were getting stronger 3 times faster than those taking placebo. So absolutely for strength and endurance, it works wonders. Recovery from exercise, athletes generate a lot of oxidation, a lot of free radicals, floating around their bodies from doing these intense workouts. And because it's such an incredibly strong antioxidant, it's helping to combat those free radicals. So it's working in a few different ways to help athletes.
Excellent. So very exciting because exercise is really one of the crucial components that we recommend, and obviously most people realize is necessary if you're going to be optimally healthy. It's in my view, certainly more powerful than most drugs, with respect to the benefits and virtually no side effects except for these injuries and overuse syndromes which can happen, and astaxanthin would be useful to protect against that. So it also seems to be, is an antioxidant, it seems to have some very powerful anti-inflammatory benefits. So as a result of that, it seems to be useful for a number of other diseases that are associated with inflammation. And one of those would be, of course, arthritis. So I'm wondering if you could talk to us about that and kind of the doses that people use, and if you notice if there's a difference in specific joint injuries from sports or injuries or accidents, or osteoarthritis or rheumatoid arthritis or other types of arthritic conditions.
We've actually, that's a good question, Doctor, and we've done a few different studies in that area, and all of the studies we've done point to the same final conclusion, that the astaxanthin is not going to cure these problems. It's not curative, but it will absolutely help with having people feel better and definitely increase mobility and also to reduce pain. So we've done a study, for example, rheumatoid arthritis is much harder to treat than osteoarthritis, and we've done a study on that where believe it or not, about halfway through the study when the results started kicking in, and by the way, astaxanthin takes usually at least 2 and up to 6 weeks to really start kicking in. It doesn't work overnight. So don't expect to take a pill and an hour later
it's not like an aspirin or an Advil.
No, not at all. But again, most of these other anti-inflammatories have some serious side effects.
Of course.
So
like death.
Yeah. Well, and astaxanthin, safe, natural, no side effects, no contraindications. But it's going to take a little while. But people, about halfway through the study, were asking the people in the treatment group taking the astaxanthin, not the placebo, were asking the researcher, "What is this?" A lot of them with rheumatoid arthritis had tried many different things and had not gotten results. Now with astaxanthin, they were getting very good results. Just took about a month or so to kick in. We've done studies on people with carpal tunnel syndrome. Again, very good results. People with tennis elbow actually made their grip strength 93% stronger in 8 weeks. So obviously, if you have tennis elbow, it's one of the bad side effects is that your grip strength gets very weak. These were all different studies on people that had certain conditions. We did another study on a group of people that were just, again, athletes, and to test about joint soreness after heavy exercise. And so this was people that had no afflictions, but also the same thing. Placebo group had after doing heavy exercise had serious joint problems, joint pain. People taking astaxanthin much reduced, almost to a point of no joint pain after doing heavy exercise. So it'll work whether you have an issue or whether you're perfectly healthy as well.
That's great. So some pretty profoundly impressive results. And I like the fact that you mentioned that it really isn't a magic pill, that it clearly relieves symptoms. It doesn't work as quickly, but it relieves symptoms, and in many cases far more effectively than the far more expensive and potentially toxic and dangerous drug prescription anti-inflammatories or over-the-counter ones, certainly, which can be equally as dangerous. But it's not a magic pill, and if one uses it for these conditions, then one clearly needs to look at the foundational causes, which in many cases is going to be the diet. Too much sugars and grains that are increasing insulin levels and increasing inflammatory prostaglandins, so and modulating the fats to make sure you're having good fats and enough essential animal-based omega-3s, and then also looking at biomechanical stresses like in tennis elbow. You've got to look at weak muscles or tight muscles and do range of motion exercises and strengthening exercises to address those so that you get collectively do it. But part of a comprehensive program, it really looks like a magic bullet, But I just want to warn people that they really need to address the foundational causes. And in many cases, that's going to be required to visit with a healthcare professional who's knowledgeable about natural solutions and not, the traditional conventional doctor who's just going to see you for a few minutes and write a prescription for you. And because clearly you could do better than that. You could do a lot better than that just by reading on the internet. But clearly, what you don't have by reading on the internet is the knowledge of someone who's really carefully studied this and is aware of all the potential complications and variables that might be factors that you're not aware of. So just a caution for everyone.
These are good points you're bringing up. And one other thing I like to bring up with this is that for really one reason we believe not everyone gets really good benefits from astaxanthin. Most people do. About 85% of people in studies and also in surveys get fantastic results for several different things. There's about 15% of the population, and the reason why we think this is because many people have a very poor ability to absorb carotenoids, of which astaxanthin is a carotenoid. So people absorb anywhere from as low as 5% of the carotenoids in their diet or in supplements up to over 90%. So say if your body absorbs 90%, you're going to get a great benefit even at like 2 to 4 milligrams a day. If I'm only a 5% absorber, I might take 12 milligrams a day and get almost no benefit. So it's not a magic pill. It works for about 85% of the people. It works usually in about a month or so. It starts really kicking in. But then you're going to get many benefits. We talked about joint pain. We talked about skin. And there's many others as well.
One of the other ones that I can remember off the top of my head that astaxanthin seems to be useful for is the most common cause of blindness, at least in the United States and most Western countries. It would be age-related macular degeneration, or ARMD, and it takes vision from more people than any other cause of disease. So apparently this seems to be a particularly useful therapy in the prevention of this type of blindness, but I'm not sure about what the studies show for the treatment of it. So I'm wondering if you can comment on that.
Well, there's been quite a bit of research on astaxanthin for eye health in general, and one of the areas you brought up for sure is one of them, for age-related macular degeneration.
Oh, and the other point was cataracts, too, so you include that in your answer. So.
Yeah, definitely age-related macular degeneration, cataracts. There's some interesting properties in terms of many people nowadays that are working on computers all day long are getting very tired eyes. Astaxanthin absolutely has been shown in 9 different human clinical studies, 9, to be able to prevent tired eyes and also to be able to help cure once you have tired eyes. So it's helping to maintain the motor function of the eyes at the highest level, just like it is your other muscles.
And my guess is these tired eyes, and I'm not familiar with the medical term for that, is actually one of, at least my understanding, is one of the primary reasons why as people age, they tend to develop what is called presbyopia, or they lose the ability to focus in close, so they can't read really well, and they have to move the book further out, and that requires them to wear these reading glasses. So that's typically due to tired eyes. So I would imagine it may be beneficial for that too, presbyopia.
There's no studies in that area. I don't believe. Actually, I remember the word. It's called visual accommodation.
Oh, visual accommodation.
Yeah, as your eyes get tired from overuse. But I would imagine that also it would be very good for that. Also, visual acuity. In terms of the ability to see fine detail. Also, another thing of the eyes would be just protecting the eyes from sun damage. Just like it protects our skin from UV damage, it's also protecting the eyes from sun damage. So it's really, for eye health, it hasn't been known for as long a period of time as some other products, but all the research points to astaxanthin being really the champion of the supplements for eye health.
Yeah, because the traditional one would be lutein.
Absolutely, which is great too.
Which is still good, but it appears from all the evidence that this is far superior to lutein, if you only had to use one. So are there any other therapeutic applications for astaxanthin that you'd like to discuss or review with us?
Well, sure. For example, just like it can help protect the eyes, bring anti-inflammatory and very strong natural antioxidant protection to the eyes, it also does the same in the brain. And there was very little research on the brain until pretty recently. In just the last 2 years, there's been 10 different studies demonstrating that astaxanthin can have some very, very good effects for the brain. 2 of these were really gold standard human clinical trials, and all showing sort of the same things, that it can prevent dementia as we age, One actually animal study, again over in Japan, showed that it could potentially actually make the rodent smarter. I mean, that was not really demonstrated in humans yet, but that's kind of an interesting thing, not just for people as they age, but for anybody that just wants to have their brain functioning at maximum capacity.
Now, how many people would want that?
Yeah, I know I need it.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because Alzheimer's is literally an epidemic. I mean, the projections are that 1 in 3 of us will lose our brain as we age, which is really a sad commentary because, of course, we want to live older and enjoy life as long as we can, but we want to enjoy it with the full functioning capacity of our brain. What is it good to be 90 years old if you can't remember your children or your spouse?
That's true. But so the brain health. Another area also is immunity. There's been several very nice studies on how astaxanthin can help increase immunity. There's a great study at Washington State University in humans that really demonstrated this very, very effectively. And there's been other things, looking at potentials for cancer, tumor reduction, things like that. We don't talk about those as much because there have not been human studies in that area. These have been all preclinical animal trials. But basically, like what I try to summarize with is that astaxanthin, if you kind of look at all of the negative things, the maladies associated with aging, anybody 40 and older, I mean anyone I know, I tell them really take this product because it's helping in so many different ways. It's helping your eyes and your brain. It's helping the heart for sure, the whole cardiovascular system. Over 40 different studies in that area. I mean, fantastic research. It's helping your immunity. It's helping your skin. I mean, right down the line, helping with joint pain. It's really, again, not the magic bullet, but in terms of what we have out there.
Part of the puzzle.
It's about the best thing.
So you mentioned cardiovascular disease, which tends to be one of the leading causes of death. How about the other two major ones, which would be cancer and diabetes? Have you seen any literature connection and studies that have looked at astaxanthin's potential benefits there?
Yeah, believe it or not, in both of those areas there are studies, but they're only animal trials so far, and there's been no human clinical research so far in either diabetes or cancer. But there are promising preclinical work.
And part of this is because it's only been available for about 10 years or so. So
that's exactly
it hasn't
true.
been on the market that while. If we can give our viewers some sense of perspective, because that's always useful. So you said it's a powerful antioxidant, but powerful is a word. Can you provide some more objective parameters to how compare to some of the more traditional antioxidants that people would be familiar with, like vitamin E or vitamin C?
I mean, there's been so many different tests where they take astaxanthin and put it head-to-head against other well-known antioxidants. And in every test, and there's different ways to measure, by the way. There's several different ways to measure antioxidant strength. Every one of them, astaxanthin consistently comes out way above the others. Vitamin E, comparing single oxygen quenching, it was 550 times stronger. CoQ10, 800 times stronger. Vitamin C, in one of the studies, again this was single oxygen quenching, it was 6,000 times stronger. Now, compared to some other antioxidants like, say, lutein, and it might be only 10 times stronger, but overall, whatever you're comparing it with, it's consistently well above all the competitors. Astaxanthin is pretty unique in the sense that it can protect the entire cell. And the astaxanthin molecule is it's in the same family as beta-carotene and other carotenoids like lutein and lycopene, but it's very, very different. The shape of the molecule and the ends of the molecule. And the one end of the astaxanthin molecule can actually be protecting the water-soluble part of the cell, and it spans the cell membrane, and the other end can be protecting the fat-soluble part of the cell. So it can protect the entire cell. So first of all, it gets throughout the entire body. It gets in the skin, the muscles, the brain, the eyes, the heart. So it's getting everywhere, and it's protecting all the cells and the whole part of the cell. So it's really unique in how it works. Another thing that's really interesting to note is that many very good antioxidants, under certain conditions, can change and have the opposite effect and become pro-oxidants and actually cause additional oxidation in the body. Astaxanthin,
the reverse effect.
Exactly. It can start doing damage. Astaxanthin has been shown in a few different studies never, ever to be able to become a pro-oxidant. So it's never going to hurt you. It's only going to help you.
So I think it really serves something that everyone should seriously consider, if they are really seeking to achieve those optimal benefits and protect themselves in the long run. It really is a form of insurance, and I think we definitely need health insurance to protect against accidents and catastrophes. But it's almost foolish to invest against that contingency and not make investments for the inevitable reality of some of these diseases that tend to progress as we age, and sort of inevitability unless we pass away prematurely from some accident, which is why we have health insurance, and wear seatbelts and have safety airbags. So again, thank you for coming from Hawaii. Thank you for all the research you've done, for writing that document that really sensitized me to the great potential that Astaxanthin had, and for all the benefit it provides for me and my family, and for all the work that you'll be continuing to do.
Well, you thank me for coming from Hawaii. I want to thank you for being a very impartial person that looks for research-based things to recommend and recommends only things that you feel comfortable are really going to help people, and for all you've done for this great product. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Because we do get lots of products. I mean, people don't know that we have probably, I don't personally, but there's probably 10 to 20 products that people seek to have us promote a week. I mean, it's literally thousands a year, and it's very few that kind of make it through the process, but Astaxanthin was clearly one that did. So again, thanks a lot, and keep up the good work.
My pleasure.